Hello and good morning.
I'm going to wait till everybody gets on. Did you have any trouble getting in? Did you get was there a password you had to use?
I just clicked the link. That was all I had to do.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh my. Hello? Are we the only ones on right now?
No, there's some others waiting, but I told them we're not going to start talking until everybody gets
Hey,
on.
how you doing?
Okay.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. The students are all on mute until we get started.
Okay, I'll put mine back on mute.
No, not yet. I'm going to give it a few more minutes before we start.
Good morning.
Morning. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start. It's 10:05. One lesson to learn for interns is you got to come on time. So I'm recording this, so they'll just have to review what we're talking about. Well, thank everybody else who did show up on time. I'm Dr. Travis, and with me in terms of faculty is Dr. King, who's in charge of all internships for the university, for the college. Some more people in here. Dr. Shirley Brown's on here somewhere. I can't see everybody. Dr. Shamika Palmer is on, and Dr. Greg Hughes is on. So the four of us, not counting Dr. Keene, are the faculty for healthcare leadership. There's Dr. Hughes right there. What we're going to do briefly is, and I know Dr. Keene has had several meetings with students throughout the college to discuss the general points about how to use the internship manual and what the requirements are. And that's really not our focus. Our focus is to talk about specifically the type of internship that healthcare leadership students have. Ours is different than the other ones in the college in that ours is an administrative internship, not a clinical internship. And all the sites that we work with know that, understand it, and we've worked with most of them for a number of years. So basically, I'll talk first about internships at sites. And I'm going to ask Dr. Hughes to start the discussion about virtual internships. Dr. Brown and Dr. Palmer will join in and contribute whatever they'd like about that. We've been doing that since the summer, so I don't know if we're becoming experts at it, but we're doing it. And that is an option we have to consider because a lot of sites still are not permitting on-site internships. So for those of you who are fortunate enough to have secured or are going to secure a site, which is what we prefer if you can, the normal sequence there in the site, a list of sites I've sent to all of the your academic advisors. Now, the three of them, Dr. Hughes, Dr. Palmer, Dr. Brown, are going to be your academic advisors for the spring. And you will be assigned to one of them. And that one is your advisor academically. And Dr. King is available in terms of all internship, broad internship issues that have to be discussed. But for the day-to-day, I've got a problem with this, or how do I do that? You go to your academic advisor. So I've sent them a copy of the latest list of sites, and I'll send one out to this whole group when we're through. I am recording this meeting, which is good. I'm still watching to see if anybody else is coming on. So I have to pay attention to that as well. But basically for the a site internship, most of the stuff that we talk about are just practical things you need to do. It's really sort of a, it's like job training in a real world setting. It's applying the courses that you've learned throughout your time with us at Healthcare Leadership into real situations. You will have a site supervisor as well if you're fortunate enough to have a site. So you'll have two supervisors on site and the academic academic supervisors, not advisor, but supervisor. And And the site supervisor is the one you would have interactions with right away and sort of work with them to figure out what it is you're going to do at the site, which is fine. And then you wind up, the first thing you really get into is developing a learning contract, which is just a general summary of major points to be achieved while you're at that site. And there's a form to fill out. Supervisor will fill it out after you've had a discussion with he or she. And then you sign it, and then you put it in the Dropbox designated for that. This is all online, and send it back to your academic supervisor. Okay, so that really gives you sort of a roadmap of what you're going to do while you're at that particular site. And you may also be asked to do special projects of some sort while you're at the site. This is also fine, and we agree to that. We're not talking about answering the phone and filing things. That's not your internship. You might have to do some of that just incidentally, but that's not what you're there for. So we certainly don't want you spending your time being a secretary. So the things we try to stress are, as I say, they're common sense things. First, once you agree to how many days a week you're going to be there and the times you're going to be there, then that's your quote work schedule. You're expected to come and be there on time, stay the entire time. It's like, well, I think I'm through for the day, I'll just knock off. No, that's not what you do, because you have to get those hours. And most of you are doing your internship for 6 academic credits. So that means you have to have 240 work hours at the site. So that's really what you have to achieve. So you have to plan it out ahead of time. You know, how many weeks do you have? How many hours a week do you need to hit that 240 number? And it becomes really important towards the end of the semester. If you say, hey, I'm short, I don't have enough hours. Well, you're gonna have to get some hours or be some problems. You may not be able to complete the internship during that semester, which then leads to other problems for most who are taking it in the spring, as they're trying to graduate at the end of spring. So you have to coordinate that and make sure. And we don't, a question was, how do you know whether you need 3 hours or 6 hours? Unless you get special permission, which requires some discussions, you're taking 6 hours. If you think you qualify based upon your work experience for 3 hours, you can contact me. I will put you in touch with Dr. Karen Thurman, who will assess your background, and together we'll determine if you qualify for 3 hours versus 6. And that's great. If you could do 3 hours, that means you only do 120 hours. The only caution I would give you with that is you have to check with your academic advisor, be that Ms. Walker or Ms. Johnson, because you need, the way they're computing it is those 6 hours are part of the total number of hours you need to graduate. So if you get a permission to take 3 hours, you have to take another 3-hour course to give you enough hours to graduate. So I know it's a lot of information, but always check with your academic advisor on anything like how many hours do I need? Do I have enough hours to graduate? That's what they keep track of. So you kind of, and you got to come tell all of us the stuff's going on. So most of you should be doing 6 hours. Now, if you've been in healthcare for 10 years or more or whatever, and that may qualify you to just do the 3. But normally it's 6, subject to approval. So it's a good question. But, and if you have questions, you can put them in the chat room. It's easier for me to handle that in terms of everybody trying to talk at one time. So once you begin the process, you're there on site. And the assumption, but I'm going to assume we'll just tell you, you should, understand what their dress code is there. If it's casual, fine. If it's a little more than that, normally they're not, that's fine. But you can't come in flip-flops and cutoffs and short shorts and all that kind of stuff, or they will send you home, as they rightfully should. So good common sense on that when you come. And be professional when you're there. I mean, don't go, it's not like you're in a classroom. You're there, that's a work environment. You have to get with their program and make sure you're doing things the way they want you to do them. And if you have questions, you ask. Don't assume that you know what to do if you're not sure. But once you begin the process, every 2 weeks, not 1 week, but 2 bi-weekly, you will submit back to your academic supervisor a work log, which says, I worked X number of hours this week. I did this, this, and this. That log has to be initialed by your site supervisor, which validates that you've been there these times that you're stating. And that begins you accumulating the hours you need. So by the end of the semester, those work logs should add up to 240 or more. You can go over if you want to, or more hours at that site. So that's a key factor in you completing the internship. At the same time, every 2 weeks, there is a discussion box, and that's in a Dropbox. There's a discussion box every 2 weeks as well, and all these are laid out on the course once the course opens. Dr. Keene, is that in November the course is open, or do you remember?
Say the question again, Pat.
When does the courses start? And is it like, I know it's January 1 or January, the middle of January, but when do they open so people can look at them, what they're doing?
Oh,
I'll check with Kathy.
Yeah, because I'm
I'll
not
send
sure.
this out. Again, this is a question we have to ask Ms. Walker. So lots of questions when you're starting the internship for us as well. So every 2 weeks, you have a discussion to fill out. And the discussion is basically telling everybody, because that discussion is shared with all the other interns and with your academic supervisor. It tells you, what happened that week. Did you just get started? Did you get an orientation? Did you have a problem? That just sort of a log of what you've been doing and your experience within the internship site. And it can be good or bad. But if you get a problem, share it. Maybe somebody else can give you a recommendation on it that they've had to deal with. The things we've seen that have been issues or potential personality conflicts, typically not with the site supervisor, but you may have a conflict with somebody else who works there. And not everybody's going to like you, but that's true. But if that's something that's a problem, I would recommend you talk to your academic supervisor about that to help them resolve personality issues or clashes. Because in a normal job situation, not everybody likes everybody, but you have to get your work done. And usually you have to contribute to what the organization needs done. So again, it's common sense sometimes. Sometimes it gets a little touchy. And if it is, then your academic supervisor may get involved in some fashion to get that out of the way. But ultimately, when you're at a site, a lot of this falls upon you as your responsibility, just as it would if you were there in a full-time employment. So just use common sense. Something doesn't seem right, holler up, let everybody know about it. So every 2 weeks, work log, discussion post. So that's a constant. And then halfway through the semester, there will be a point to where your site supervisor will do an evaluation. There's a form for that in the manual. It's a basically, you know, you're doing good, bad, indifferent. It's like a 1 to 10 kind of rating, and any other comments they want to make. And it's sort of a, how are you doing so far in the site? Are you making it? Are you doing what they asking you to do? Are there things you need to improve on? And that's understandable if you need to things to work on. They sign that evaluation. You sign it, discuss it together to make sure you understand what they're talking about. Then you post that in the Dropbox specified for it back to your academic supervisor. So there's this relationship of you do things there, you post things that go back to your supervisor so they can see what's going on, and that's one of the things you have to do. There'll be another evaluation by your site supervisor at the end of the semester. It's the same form basically, but it's like okay, here's where you are now. You know, you've dealt with certain things and everything's great. You know, you can get a gold star or whatever, but you need that as well at the end of the semester to be signed by that person and you and submitted. So those are really the things you have to get done at the site. Your biweekly work log, discussion log, your two evaluations by your supervisor. You also have to, at the end of the semester, there's a Dropbox for basically what we're calling a synthesizing paper, which is just sort of a history of what you've done while you're at the site. It's really a compilation maybe of all those discussion posts that you made, maybe as reminders to you. But what happened, good, bad, indifferent? Did you enjoy it? You know, just sort of a working history of your experience at the site. So you have to do that at the end as well. So some things you got to turn in day by day. You got to come on time, stay the appointed time, do what you have worked out to do in terms of your responsibilities at the site. And if you have problems, initially, if they're there, I think you go to your site supervisor and make sure you understand what's going on. But other than that, that's sort of the structure that's built in. Now they're always, you know, and what if you get sick? Well, if you get sick or your children are sick, just like you would do on a regular job, you've got to contact your site supervisor. I'm not coming in today. And a reason, not just, I don't feel like it. That's not a reason. Because they may have something planned for you to do that day, maybe an orientation with a particular area of the organization. So they need to know you're not there because they're going to expect you to be there the days you've agreed to, the hours you've agreed to. So they're going to treat you in many ways like their employee. But they're also there for you to ask questions, why this happened or what is that. We have asked, and most places agree to this, is to let you sit in on team meetings, management meetings, to observe. You don't participate in those, you observe them. And then if you've got questions about it, talk to your site supervisor after you're through and when they have time to talk to you. What you would see in those meetings, that's why we want you to go to them, is sort of the dynamics that occur in any work environment of people having to get a job done, but not necessarily all loving and hugging each other. You can see friction in these kind of meetings. You can tell who likes who and all this kind of stuff just by what they do, what they don't do, facial expressions. But you're just getting a feel for how that organization operates. It's a valuable experience because wherever you go, get a job, go to graduate school, and eventually get a job, that environment is what you're going to experience anywhere. Anywhere you go, you're going to have those kind of dynamics going on. So I think that's about all. Any other faculty members, am I missing something major here to stress for a site, an internship at a site? Hearing none. All right, I'm going to ask Dr. Hughes to start the discussion, and then the other two faculty members, Dr. Brown, Dr. Palmer, will join in on how does the virtual internship work? Because some of you may try, and wherever you try, they say, we're not taking people yet. It's still not safe for us or safe for you. Some places are. I know Methodist Hospital is taking interns, and you have to contact the person who's on the contact list, Brandy Walton, to coordinate that. And that's about it on that one. Greg, why don't you start the discussion on the virtual internship?
Okay. Well, as Dr. Travis said, we hope that everybody's able to secure a site, but there's so many unknowns with that. Hopefully everybody will secure that site, be able to gain some great experience. But we don't know with the COVID-19 how things will turn. You may secure a site and then that could be interrupted. So we just have to take that as it comes. So as Dr. Travis said, work to get a good site, and we'll just have to see how those things play out. With the virtual internship, if that has to be an option for you, we try to set up the virtual internship such that it will simulate in some fashion, to the best of our ability, those things that you're doing on site. So starting out, there will be some of the paperwork that the on-site students going to an on-site fill out, and you'll be responsible for filling some of those forms out. You keep in mind that if you're an on-site person, you're going to have an on-site supervisor. And if I was your supervisor here at the university, or Dr. Palmer or Dr. Brown or Travis, then we would be your university supervisor. Well, in the virtual internship, if I was your university supervisor, I would also serve sort of as your site supervisor for this simulated virtual internship. So you would have some basic paperwork that's similar to the on-site internship that you would fill out. You would also, as the on-site students do, you would be completing bi-weekly discussion posts. You don't do the logs, but you do the bi-weekly discussion post. And in that, you're going to be talking every 2 weeks about your progress on the specific assignments that we have in the virtual internship. And so you'll also be communicating with your peers on those posts and giving feedback on their post. So that's a real important part of letting everybody know how you're doing in the virtual internship and giving people feedback. So you'll be doing those posts every 2 weeks. In the virtual internship, you have two major assignments, projects, I should say. And the first is a case study. And so you will be researching two hospitals of the major hospitals here in Memphis, two of them Methodist and Baptist. And you'll be comparing them in a lot of different areas. And we have that outlined in your course content. So that will be one project, really looking at the dynamics and a lot of the structure of those facilities. And you'll be researching those and comparing those. So that's a case study. The second, you're going to have a special project where you're going to do research on COVID-19 and its effects here in Shelby County. That's ever changing. So you know, how it's affecting our Shelby County area, Mid-South area is ever changing. So we're going to have you do a special project that you're doing some research on that, on the pandemic here locally. You will also complete also the synthesizing paper, just as the on-site students do. And that's just a reflection paper basically of how, of your time in the virtual internship. And so you'll also be completing that. We have specific guidelines for that in your course content. Also, as the on-site students, we'll be doing a midterm evaluation and we'll be doing a final evaluation at the end of the semester. And we will be serving sort of as your on-site supervisor also. How do we evaluate you? Are you turning in things on time? Are you participating in those things set forth, such as your biweekly post? Are they timely? How are you doing on the projects? So we'll be evaluating you and just your efforts, just as you'll be the on-site will be evaluated on their efforts in their on-site experience. So those are the primary components of the virtual internship. Again, we hope that you're able to secure a site and maintain that site, because that's where you're gaining real experience and developing a lot of connections with people out there in the community that could actually even lead to employment. So that's the basic rundown of the virtual.
Well, I wanted to add something also. As this semester, we're doing the virtual and the on-site. I have students who's at an on-site and they're afraid that they may not get the total 240 hours. So don't let that limit you from going out to get an internship. So what we're doing, if they feel that they're not getting enough hours, they're still getting that experience. However, what I've done is giving them an additional assignment so that they can make up those hours that they have not completed by the end of the semester. And of course, our semester is shorter this term due to COVID. So in November, normally we will end like the second week in December, but you won't return after the Thanksgiving holiday. So all of those hours have to be completed prior to that. So don't feel that, you know, if I go in, I may not get enough hours. You're still going to be able to get that experience. So if you see that you're not getting the hours that you'll need to complete the 240 at the end of the semester, make sure you reach out to one of us who's your academic supervisor, and we will do some additional work to give you, which what I'm doing is allowing my students to do one of the projects that's already listed for the virtual intern students. So I just wanted to add that. So if you feel that you may not get the hours, but you want to get that experience at a site, just go in and see how many hours you can work per week, and we'll determine from there.
Good flexibility. Dr. Brown, do you have anything to contribute to that?
I've had a student who actually started out with an on-site, ended up developing COVID and had to switch to virtual. And basically we did the same thing. So this is all new for us, but I can say when I've been doing my Zoom sessions that I've had a student who will actually get employment. She's already been offered a job. So I would really recommend if you can get an on-site internship to pursue that avenue first. And if everything fails, then you can do the virtual. Because we want to make sure everybody too not graduates at their allotted time.
I wanted to add also, good point, Dr. Brown. Um, I've had students who tried to start the internship prior to the semester. So if you're actually getting those hours, they will not count towards your internship hours. So whenever the course or the semester starts, that's when you start your internship hours. So you cannot start prior to that. And I understand that, over the break, you may want to start, trying to get some hours, but we can't allow you. That will be considered a volunteer hour. Those hours will not go towards your internship. And I can't express enough, try to get an internship simply because you're getting experience. Once you finish with your degree, that can be used as an on-site experience. It can help you get employment. They will look at your internship as an opportunity of you having some experience in that particular area. So don't try to just weasel out of getting, going to a site or having to do the 240 hours because you'll be limiting yourself. But I understand the situation that we're in currently with COVID. But do all you can to try to get an actual on-site internship that will be more beneficial to you than actually doing the virtual internship.
Very good point. Yeah, we're trying to be as flexible as we can be, but still uh, making sure you do everything that's required of an internship, even if it's in a virtual environment. I did see a question on here about somebody who was working at Methodist of Bonner, and they're asking, can they do their internship there? I have been told by the corporate level at Methodist that for some reason they're not permitting that anymore. So if you're working there, you can't internship there. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. They said, well, that's okay. We're just telling you they can't do that. So you'd have to get an internship somewhere else, whether it's at the VA or Baptist or Regional One, Church Health, a number of sites that we work with all the time. So it makes it somewhat of a challenge, but we understand. I think a point Dr. Palmer made about hours before your internship time, that semester begins, it may be a good thing to volunteer there before you start, just to kind of know what the lay of the land is and how to be there. And they may appreciate that more themselves at that site. So it's a judgment. I would talk to your supervisor, your academic supervisor about that. Just, what do you think I should do? Or what is your recommendations? So common sense, something not going right, talk to somebody. We have students who have a crisis from their perspective, and they don't tell anybody about it until about halfway through the semester. Then it's, what am I going to do? Well, that makes it a challenge to do that. So,
Can I say add one more thing also, Pat?
sure.
Um, I don't know if students really understand how much work it takes to even secure an internship site. So my suggestion, even, I know you're wondering why we're talking about this already and it's 2-3 months. It literally takes sometimes 2 and 3 months just to secure an internship site. The onboarding process is almost similar to a new hire. So my suggestion would be to go ahead on and identify at 4 or 5 different sites, not just 1 or 2, but 4 or 5 different sites, and start putting your bids in, because most of these sites only accept X number of students. So that's why we're speaking to you about this several months ahead of time, because it does take 2 or 3 months for the process to even be cemented.
And I also wanted to add something. I've had a student who was working at a healthcare organization, and she wanted to intern at that same organization. Now, you cannot intern doing the same hours as your work hours. So once you complete your work hours, that's when your intern hours start. So if you work from 8 until 4, your intern hours can't start until 4:05 or 4:10 and go into the number of hours that you're going to work for that particular day. So the two can go coincide with each other at the same time. You're not getting, that's not considered as an internship. They're just considered as you working and using your work hours towards your internship. So the two has to be separate. I just wanted to make sure that you understand that you can intern where you work, but it has to be a separate time, not doing your work hours. And when you turn in your log, I've had some students that just turn in their hours. I will need your supervisor's signature. Their supervisor has to verify that you have been there that particular time frame. And to make it easier for you, it's my advice to just add your hours weekly. So week 1, you have 10 hours. Week 2, you have 10 hours. So they give you a total of 20 hours. So add your hours up as you go. So at the end, you won't have to try to figure out how close am I to 240 hours. So each week, just add your hours as they go so that you'll know where you stand. So those are just some points that I wanted to make because I'm really trying to encourage the students to actually go out and get an actual intern and not do the virtual. So make sure that you understand the importance of actually getting that on-site experience and not just doing the virtual internship.
The virtual is not that easy, I might add. So it requires a lot of research on your part because you don't have a textbook for this. You've got to go to sites and look at what the health department has posted, and they do this. They have meetings every day that they keep a record of that shows you what's happening, what's the incident rate of COVID, what's the mortality rate, what's being done about it. So you have to do that. You have to look at websites. You have to check newspapers, magazines, articles published about it. And you have to come up with some real facts that your supervisor has to review. And you send it in like as a draft, and they will let you know if it's sufficient or no. You missed some things. You've got to go back and do more. So it's quite a bit of work to do the virtual internship. It's an alternative that's just we had to create it because there are situations where you can't do it. Like in the summer, nobody was letting anybody do an on-site internship. So that made it essential that we started that process. But ideally, once we all get vaccinated and everything else, we're going to do away with that virtual internship, or at least put it up on the shelf somewhere, because you do need the other internship if you can get it. And I know several students in their exit interviews, when you graduate, you'll do an exit interview of, what did you like about the program, what you didn't like about it. And they've said really, the only thing they regretted was not being able to do an on-site internship, which we understand. We prefer that as well. But sometimes you're going to have situations that you can't do it. Or like Dr. Palmer's talking about, she had a student doing one on site. You get COVID-19, they're going to tell you to go home. So there you go. So there are going to be some unique situations. We will work with you on the unique situations as they occur. But the good news is just about everybody gets through with their internship. We don't have hardly anybody who doesn't finish their internship. You got to work hard at not doing stuff to not make it. Now, sometimes we get students who do not finish their 240 hours. It's not the end of the world, but it means you're going to have to continue to work there until you accumulate those hours after the semester is over. If you plan to graduate at the end of spring, you won't graduate at the end of spring. You would then graduate, assuming you complete your hours, at the end of summer. And that's one of the pitfalls of not getting the hours. But securing the correct number of hours that have been agreed upon is the requirement. So if you can't get them, you can keep working there. And if you doesn't work out, you could do another internship if you like it that much. But I would say one time is plenty. But so between the three healthcare leadership faculty and Dr. Keene, we should be able, and certainly I try to address any question you might have, but you know, they should be able to assist you with any problems you have. I see a question about experiential learning credits on here. That yeah, you can apply for these experiential learning credits, but you have to work with Professor Thurman, who we work with. She's not even in our college. She's separate from us. But she has a whole list of things you have to do, and you sort of put out a history of your work experience. And she has an evaluation process that she shares with us. And then we jointly decide whether you are eligible for those credits or not. And credits vary. They can be 3 hours, they can be more hours than that. So it's just a function of what you've done experientially. Does it count? And sometimes things that are, if you've been in the military, if you've been an emergency technician, they may count for some hours. So, but all that has to be looked at, or, you know, fireworkers, fire people, they take training in these things too. So it may not cut your hours in terms of whether you take 3 hours or 6 hours for credit, but you can substitute for a certain number of hours that you're going to need to graduate. So we try to help you with that too, if it's possible. So,
Dr. Travis, I think there's a question about how will they know who their site supervisor is? Are you speaking of your site supervisor or your academic supervisor? Well, just to answer both of them. Did you want to answer that question, Dr. Travis?
well, you're not going to know who the site supervisor is until you get approved to come to that site. We normally, we have at least someone who coordinates.
Take yourself off mute.
Am I on mute?
No, the young lady who asked the question, she's on mute, but I think she's still trying to talk. So I'm assuming she's at.
I'm sorry, it's Tanya. I meant academic supervisor.
Ah, well, that's the three other faculty members that are here with me in healthcare leadership. One of them is going to be yours. Now, when do they register for?
In November. So
November.
you'll know when you register which academic supervisor you're, and that's with Kathy or Angela or your academic supervisor. They'll let you know which professor will be your academic supervisor.
Yeah,
I understand. Thank you.
yeah. The advisors, the academic advisors, assigned students, and we don't know who they're going to assign us to, but they and we try to make it an equal number for each faculty member. So they may have 12 students, they may have 15 students, but it's less than 50 students, that like most of our other classes are. So you can get good personal attention. But that's, yeah, once you know who it is, and that's who you go to get information from. Anybody else have questions like that? I mean, there are going to be a lot of questions, so it's all right. But you can follow up with emails to me or to one of the other faculty members to say, oh, I didn't ask about this or that. It's always something, but it's just, we're just trying to give you the basics today of what's going on. And as Dr. Palmer said, most sites, which they don't necessarily tell us, they have a limit of how many interns they're going to take in a semester. And once that limit is there, that's it. You can't have, we don't have any more. They're used up. So that's why it's a good plan to approach them early enough about your interest in coming there to be an intern. And of course, when you do that, they're going to say, well, why do you want to come here? And you can't give them some, fluff answer of, well, I got to get this thing done and I had to get somewhere. No, you've got to give them just a general answer about, trying to learn how organizations work in healthcare and how they complete their responsibilities as sort of the business of healthcare. How do they handle HR? How do they handle marketing, data management, finance, and administration itself? Those are the areas that you want to know something about. So just don't say, well, I got to do it because they told me I had to get these hours. So normally they say, well, no, thank you. They can reject you. They're not required to take you in an internship. So, and as I say, I've recorded this. So if there's something that got brought up, you missed it, you came in a little late, you can check the recording. I'm going to post that recording for anyone who wants to review it. Any other questions about either type of internship? We'll know pretty quickly if you can't find a site, you're going to be in the virtual. But if you think you can find one, or if you want to raise a question about sites you want to get to, talk to your academic supervisor. They may know somebody where you want to do your internship. And it's always good for them to contact that person and say, we really need so-and-so to come be with you. And Tanya, I'm sorry, but they won't let you intern there. They used to. I mean, that's the irony. I said, we used to do this all the time. Now, I think it's a legal thing now.
Oh, Dr. Travis, let me
Yes,
say
sir.
this also. I had a student who, for this current semester, who was looking for a site. And so I told her I'll connect her to somebody that I know. So I connected her to the person I knew. And so when they contacted, and she contacted them, but when it was time to start, she told them she wasn't ready yet. So I'm giving everybody the heads up. Beginning the first day of the semester, you need to be ready for whatever. Because if not, they're moving on to the next person.
Yeah. I mean, that's how business works.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't care to work? Don't worry about it. Next. I also advise you, if you're going to a site, you don't know where it is, don't wait till that day to try to find it. Go a day or two early just to know where you're going. And, like at the VA, it's like a nightmare trying to park and everything else. And don't just assume you can just pop in there on a day and everything's going to be great. So give yourself a little hedge. It's a good point, Dr. Brown.
Well, I just wanted to let you know that I have another 11 o'clock Zoom meeting. So if any students have anything that they may need to ask me, you can just send me an email, shpalmer@memphis.edu. I'm going to excuse myself from the meeting.
Understood. I'm going to excuse everybody from the meeting unless they got other questions to raise. I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. And then we'll follow up. If you've got questions, you can contact us individually. One of the 4 faculty members in the program and we will get you an answer. All right. Well, thank everybody for coming. I appreciate it. It's over.
All right, have a good day.
Ciao.